Imagine a sterile millionaire with a deep desire to find an heir, visiting a humble orphanage in search of a child who can change his destiny. When all eyes are on him and hopes are high, something happens that leaves everyone shocked and moved. What was it that aroused such emotion and surprise? Sterling Montgomery stood before the grand facade of his mansion, a sprawling estate nestled in the heart of a city that thrummed with life, while he felt utterly disconnected from it all. The opulence surrounding him, gleaming marble floors, ornate chandeliers, and meticulously landscaped gardens, failed to fill the void that had been growing within him for years. The afternoon sun cast long shadows across the driveway, mirroring the sense of emptiness that seemed to stretch endlessly before him. He ran a hand through his impeccably styled hair, a habit he had developed during countless moments of contemplation. As a reclusive billionaire, Sterling had built his empire from the ground up, but as the years passed, the relentless pursuit of wealth had left him feeling hollow. Wealth could buy luxury, but it could not purchase happiness or connection. Another day, another dollar, he murmured to himself, a sardonic smile momentarily breaking the somber expression on his face. He could hear the distant laughter of children playing in the neighborhood, a sound that tugged at his heartstrings. It was a stark reminder of the life he would never have and the family he would never create. His sterile existence felt more pronounced with every peal of laughter that drifted through the air. Today, however, Sterling had a plan. He had decided to visit the local orphanage, a decision that seemed as foreign to him as it was necessary. The orphanage had recently come to his attention through charity events he never attended and news articles he never read. He had contemplated the idea of finding an heir to inherit his fortune, a prospect that had seemed ludicrous until now. But the thought of being alone in the world had become unbearable. Perhaps if he could find someone worthy, he could forge a connection. As he stepped into his sleek black car, the leather interior embraced him like a second skin. The drive felt long despite the short distance to the orphanage, his mind racing with thoughts of what lay ahead. Would he find a child who could fill the void in his life, or was he merely chasing an illusion? Arriving at the orphanage, Sterling was struck by the contrast between the lively building and the somber world he had created for himself. The painted walls, adorned with colorful murals, and the sounds of children's laughter echoed around him, wrapping him in a warmth he had long forgotten. He parked and took a moment to gather his thoughts before stepping out of the car. As he approached the entrance, he was met with a woman in her late 20s, her dark hair pulled into a messy bun, a bright smile illuminating her face. Mia Collins, the head social worker, exuded a warmth that was almost palpable. She extended her hand, a welcoming gesture that surprised Sterling. "Hello, you must be Mr. Montgomery. We weren't expecting you today." "Sterling, please," he replied, shaking her hand firmly. "I wanted to see the place for myself. I've heard good things." Mia studied him for a moment, her brow slightly furrowed. "Good things? I hope you're not here to—" "Not to worry," he interrupted, sensing her skepticism. "I'm not here to take advantage of anyone. I'm merely interested in learning more about the children and the orphanage's needs." Her expression softened, though the wariness lingered in her eyes. "Well, I appreciate your interest, Sterling. It's not every day we have a visitor from the outside world. Let me show you around." As they walked through the orphanage, Sterling was struck by the lively atmosphere. The children ran past them, their laughter ringing like a sweet melody. He watched as Mia engaged with them, her compassionate nature drawing them in. "This is our playroom," she said, opening a door to a bright space filled with toys, art supplies, and happy chaos. "The kids spend a lot of time here. Looks like they're having fun," he observed, trying to mask his discomfort. He felt like an intruder in their world, surrounded by joy that felt so foreign to him. "They need it," Mia replied, her gaze shifting to the children. "This place is their home, and we do our best to create a nurturing environment. But it's challenging." "Challenging how?" Sterling asked, genuinely curious. Mia hesitated, her expression growing serious. "Funding is always tight. We rely on donations and unfortunately it's never enough. The state of the world doesn't help either. Many people overlook places like this." "Do you ever feel overwhelmed?" he asked, surprised by his own question. "Every day," she admitted, her voice softening, "but I can't give up on them. They deserve a chance, even if it's hard sometimes." As they continued the tour, Sterling felt a strange shift within himself. He had always viewed the world through a lens of business and profit, but here he was confronted with raw emotion and humanity. It was a world that demanded empathy, something he had long cherished but had buried beneath layers of cynicism. They reached a small courtyard where a group of children played tag, their laughter echoing off the walls. Among them was a small boy with tousled hair and bright blue eyes, his laughter infectious. Sterling felt an inexplicable connection as he watched the boy. He reminded him of his late brother, a memory that stirred a sense of nostalgia he had tried to bury for years. "Who's that?" Sterling asked, pointing to the boy. Mia followed his gaze. "That's Oliver. He's a bit of a dreamer, always full of ideas. He wants a family more than anything." The words hung in the air, and Sterling felt a pang in his chest. He remembered his brother's dreams, the aspirations they had shared before tragedy struck. How old is he? 8, Mia replied. He's been here for a while. His story is complicated. Complicated how? Sterling pressed, his curiosity piqued. Mia sighed, her expression growing somber. He was abandoned at a young age. The system hasn't been kind to him. He needs stability, love, and that sense of belonging. All the kids do. Sterling's heart ached for Oliver, and for the first time he felt the weight of his own loneliness in stark contrast to the vibrant lives surrounding him. He had never imagined that a simple visit to an orphanage could evoke such powerful emotions. As they walked back inside, Sterling felt himself shifting, his intentions becoming less about finding an heir and more about understanding the lives of these children. He was still a billionaire, but the walls he had built around his heart began to crumble, revealing a longing for connection that he had buried deep within. Mia glanced over at him, her keen eyes noticing the change in his demeanor. "Are you okay?" she asked gently. He paused, trying to find the right words. "This place is different than I expected. I didn't anticipate feeling this way." "Different how?" she pressed. "I don't know," he confessed, his voice barely above a whisper. "I think I'm starting to see them as more than just children in need. They're real, with hopes and dreams." Mia smiled, a glimmer of understanding passing between them. "That's a start. We all need to feel connected to something, don't we?" For the first time in years, Sterling felt a flicker of hope igniting within him. Perhaps this was the beginning of something new, a chance to redefine his legacy not in terms of wealth, but in connection and love. As they continued their tour, he found himself thinking less about his original intentions and more about the children who had unknowingly begun to reshape his perspective on life. As Sterling Montgomery wandered through the dimly lit hallways of the orphanage, he felt a flicker of change within himself, ignited by the stories of the children around him. The walls were adorned with vibrant drawings, each a testament to the innocence and dreams of the kids who lived there. He paused before a large mural, painted by the children, depicting a whimsical world filled with colorful castles and smiling suns. It was a stark contrast to the cold, sterile life he led in his mansion. "Isn't it beautiful?" Mia Collins, the head social worker, stood beside him, her voice laced with pride. "Each child contributed to this mural. It represents their hopes and dreams." "Yes, it's impressive," Sterling replied, his voice softer than before. He found himself captivated not only by the artwork but also by the passion emanating from Mia. There was a fire in her eyes, a determination that stirred something deep within him. "What do you think they dream of?" "Family," Mia answered, her gaze drifting towards a group of children playing in the adjoining room. "Most of them just want to belong somewhere, to be loved. They dream of having a family like any other child." Sterling felt a tightening in his chest. He had come here with the singular intent of finding an heir, someone to pass on his wealth to, but now he was confronted with the raw emotions of these children. He thought of Oliver, the boy who had caught his eye, and how he had expressed a longing for connection. "What about that boy?" he asked, pointing towards Oliver, who was building a tower of blocks, his brow furrowed in concentration. Mia smiled gently. "Oliver is special. He's been here for a while and he's one of the brightest kids we have. He dreams of a family more than anything. Every day he asks me if he can have a mom and dad. It breaks my heart. I can see why." Sterling found himself drawn to Oliver's earnestness. "What's stopping him?" Mia sighed, her expression turning serious. "It's complicated. The system is flawed. Most families come here looking for infants, not older children. Oliver is at that age where many adoptive parents overlook him simply because he's not a baby anymore." Sterling's heart ached at the thought. He had grown up in a privileged household, yet he had taken so much for granted. The wealth that had isolated him now felt burdensome in light of the children's desires. What if they didn't have to wait?" he asked, the idea forming hesitantly in his mind. Mia turned to face him, surprise flickering across her face. "What do you mean?" "I mean, what if I could help? What if I could sponsor a program that connects older children with families who are willing to adopt? There has to be a way to give them a chance to find homes for them." Mia's eyes widened, and for a moment Sterling felt a glimmer of hope. "That would be incredible," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "But it's not just about money, Sterling. It's about changing perceptions and educating potential adoptive parents about the value of older children." "I understand," he replied, feeling a sense of purpose stir within him. "I want to do more than just find an heir. I want to make a difference." Mia's lips curled into a smile, and in that moment Sterling realized he was captivated by her passion. She was more than just a social worker. She was a warrior for these children, fighting for their futures. "You have no idea how much this means to me and the kids," she said, her voice filled with sincerity. "You'll change lives." Just then, Oliver approached them, his eyes wide with curiosity. "Are you going to help us, mister?" he asked, his innocence shining through. Sterling crouched down to meet Oliver's gaze, the weight of the boy's hope pressing heavily on his heart. Oliver, I want to help children like you find families." "Really?" Oliver's face lit up and he bounced on his toes. "That would be amazing. I want a family that loves me." The sincerity in Oliver's voice struck a chord within Sterling. "You deserve that, Oliver. You all do." He stood up, glancing at Mia, who watched him with a mixture of admiration and concern. "Just remember," Mia cautioned gently. This isn't a simple task. It will take time, effort, and a lot of heart. I'm willing to do whatever it takes, he replied, determination flooding through him. I've spent so long being isolated in my wealth. It's time I put it to use for something meaningful. As they continued their tour, the conversations flowed effortlessly. Mia shared stories of the children's dreams and aspirations, and Sterling listened intently, his heart swelling with a newfound sense of purpose. The more they talked, the more he realized how deeply entrenched Mia was in the lives of these kids. She was their anchor, their advocate, and he found himself wanting to support her efforts. In the playroom, children were engaged in various activities, laughter ringing out like music. Sterling observed them, feeling a warmth spread through him as he watched them interact. A girl with pigtails was teaching a younger boy how to draw, while a group of boys played a spirited game of tag. It was a world filled with joy and innocence, and for the first time in years he felt a sense of belonging. "Do you think they'll remember me?" he asked Mia quietly, a hint of vulnerability in his voice. "Of course they will," she replied, her expression softening. "You're making an impression, Sterling. They see you as someone who cares. But I came here with a different intention," he admitted, the weight of his original plan pressing heavily on him. "I was only looking for an heir." Mia turned to face him fully, her eyes searching his. "And now I see them for who they really are, children with hopes and dreams like any other," he said, his voice steady. "I want to support them. I want to help them find families." Mia's smile widened, and in that moment, Sterling felt a connection growing between them. A bond forged not only by their shared mission but by a deeper understanding of life's complexities. "You're changing, Sterling," she said softly, "and it's beautiful to witness." As their eyes locked, Sterling felt an unexpected jolt of electricity pass between them. He had come here seeking an heir, but perhaps he was finding something far more valuable, an opportunity to create a legacy of hope, not just for himself but for these children who deserved so much more than what life had dealt them. "Thank you for showing me this world, Mia," he said, sincerity lacing his words. "I think I'm starting to understand what it means to leave a legacy." Mia's eyes sparkled with warmth, and for a moment, the weight of their individual burdens seemed to lift. Together, they had discovered a purpose greater than themselves, one that would intertwine their futures in ways neither of them could yet fathom. As they stood amidst the laughter and joy of the children, Sterling knew that his journey had only just begun. The atmosphere inside the orphanage buzzed with an eagerness that was palpable. Mia Collins, the dedicated social worker, was busy organizing a charity event that would help raise funds for the facility. The walls, adorned with crayon drawings from the children, echoed their laughter and whispers of excitement. Mia moved gracefully through the chaos, her heart swelling with pride as she watched the kids scamper around, their faces glowing with anticipation. "All right, everyone gather round," Mia called out, clapping her hands to bring the children to attention. They stopped their playful antics, eyes wide and expectant. "I want you all to remember that tomorrow is a big day for us. It's not just about the food and games, it's about showing our community how special you all are." A chorus of cheers erupted, and Oliver, a small boy with tousled hair and bright blue eyes, piped up, "Are we going to have cake?" Mia chuckled, kneeling down to his level. "Yes, Oliver, there will be cake. But more than that, we'll be sharing our dreams with everyone who comes. You all have such beautiful dreams, and I want the world to hear them." Oliver grinned, his enthusiasm infectious. "I want a family," he declared, his voice ringing with innocence. "Like a real family." Mia's heart sank slightly at his words. She knew all too well the longing that filled his small heart. "We're working on that, Oliver," she replied softly, brushing a hand through his hair. "And you never know what tomorrow might bring." As the children dispersed, Mia couldn't shake the feeling of hope mingled with unease. The event was going to be a pivotal moment, especially with Sterling Montgomery as the main sponsor. She still remembered the way he had looked at the orphanage, the flicker of something, was it humanity, in his eyes when he interacted with the children. The next day came quickly, and the orphanage transformed into a vibrant space filled with colorful banners and sparkling lights. Mia stood at the entrance, a welcoming smile plastered on her face, though her heart raced with anticipation. She adjusted her blouse nervously, glancing at the clock. Sterling had promised to arrive early to finalize details. Moments later, he appeared, stepping out of his sleek black car, his presence commanding as always. Dressed in a tailored suit, he exuded an air of confidence that contrasted with the humble setting of the orphanage. As he walked towards her, she couldn't help but admire how he seemed to blend into the environment, even if it was just for a moment. "Mia," he greeted, his voice smooth yet warm. "This looks incredible." "Thank you, Sterling," she replied, her tone laced with sincerity. "We've worked really hard to make it special." They exchanged a brief smile before Sterling's gaze flickered to the children who were eagerly setting up their booths. "I can't believe how excited they are," he remarked, watching as Oliver bounced around, helping with decorations. "Yes, they really are," Mia said, her heart swelling with affection for the kids. "It's important for them to feel valued, to know they matter." Sterling nodded, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "I want to help them feel that way. It's not just about the money, it's about making a difference." Mia studied him closely, searching for any hint of ulterior motives. The man who stood before her was different from the one who had first arrived at the orphanage. There was a softness to his demeanor now, an empathy that made her want to believe in him. "I appreciate that," she said carefully, "but actions speak louder than words, don't you think?" "Absolutely," he replied, meeting her gaze with an intensity that made her heart skip. "I intend to show you that I mean what I say." As the event commenced, laughter and chatter filled the air. Mia watched from the sidelines as Sterling engaged with the children, kneeling to their level, listening to their dreams and aspirations. She saw the way Oliver's face lit up when Sterling complimented his artwork, and for the first time she allowed herself to hope that maybe, just maybe, he could be a genuine ally for the orphanage. "Hey Mia," came a familiar voice, pulling her from her thoughts. It was Clara, one of the volunteers. "You need to see this." Curious, Mia followed Clara through the throng of people until they reached the main stage. There, Sterling stood, a microphone in hand, facing the crowd that had gathered. The children watched him with wide eyes, captivated by his presence. "Thank you all for coming," Sterling began, his voice resonating with authority yet laced with warmth. "I'm here today because I believe in the power of community, and I believe in these amazing children. They deserve more than just a roof over their heads. They deserve a future filled with love and opportunity." The crowd erupted in applause, and Mia felt her chest swell with pride. Sterling continued, "Today, I'm pledging not only financial support for this orphanage but also my commitment to be a part of these children's lives. Together, we will ensure that they have every chance to succeed." Mia's heart raced as she exchanged glances with Oliver, who was beaming with joy. It seemed that Sterling's intentions were becoming clearer, and for the first time, she felt a flicker of trust in him. As the event progressed, Mia seized the opportunity to share her own vision for the orphanage. Standing before the crowd, she spoke passionately about the need for programs that would empower the children, foster their talents, and help them navigate their dreams. "Every child deserves to feel seen and heard," she asserted, her eyes scanning the audience, landing on Sterling, who nodded encouragingly. "I want to create a safe space where they can explore their interests, whether it's art, sports, or academics," she continued. "Together, we can turn this orphanage into a nurturing environment that shapes leaders of tomorrow." The crowd applauded, and Mia felt a rush of exhilaration. She stepped off the stage, her heart racing from the adrenaline. Sterling approached her, a proud smile on his face. "You were incredible, Mia," he said, his voice low and sincere. "I can see how much this means to you." "Thank you, Sterling," she replied, feeling a warmth spread through her. "Your support makes it all possible." Before they could delve deeper into conversation, however, the atmosphere shifted dramatically. An elegant woman, impeccably dressed and exuding an air of familiarity, stepped into view. Mia's heart sank as she recognized Valerie, a name from Sterling's past that had been whispered in the shadows. "Sterling," she called out, her voice smooth like silk, "I didn't expect to see you here." As Valerie approached, the energy in the room dipped. Mia felt an unsettling chill as she watched the interaction unfold. Sterling's expression shifted, a mixture of surprise and wariness clouding his features. "Valerie," he replied, his tone guarded, "what are you doing here?" "Oh, just passing by, and I couldn't help but notice the wonderful event you're hosting," she said, her eyes glistening with a predatory gleam. "I see you've moved on from our past." Mia's heart raced as she sensed the tension between them. She stepped back, feeling like an intruder in a conversation laden with unwelcome history. "Is everything all right?" she asked cautiously, trying to gauge the situation. Sterling's gaze remained fixed on Valerie, his jaw tightening. "What do you want, Valerie?" "Oh, just to catch up with an old friend," she replied, her smile devoid of warmth. "I hear you're looking for an heir." How fascinating. The words hung heavy in the air, and Mia felt as if the ground had shifted beneath her. In that moment, she realized that Sterling's past was not as distant as he had led her to believe. The warmth that had blossomed between them felt suddenly fragile, overshadowed by the specter of Valerie's presence. "Let's talk," Sterling said, his voice steady, though Mia could see the tension in his shoulders. As they moved to a quieter corner, Mia remained on the periphery, her heart pounding. She couldn't shake off the feeling that Valerie's arrival would unravel everything they had built together, the hope that had taken root within her heart. The evening had been a celebration, but now, it felt like a fragile bubble, teetering on the brink of chaos. As the music played softly in the background, Mia watched, her heart heavy with uncertainty, wondering how much of Sterling's past would claw its way back into their present, and what it would mean for the legacy they were striving to create together. The air in the dimly lit room felt thick with tension as Valerie leaned against the doorframe, her presence imposing as she crossed her arms. Sterling stood rigidly by the window, the moonlight casting shadows across his face, illuminating the conflict brewing within him. He had always believed that family ties were sacred, yet here was a woman claiming to be his relative, her intentions cloaked in deception. "I know why you're really here, Sterling," Valerie said, her voice smooth like honey but with a hint of steel. "You're searching for an heir, and I'm just the person to help you." He turned to face her, disbelief etched on his features. "You think I'd just hand over my fortune to someone I barely know, just because you claim to be family?" His tone was sharper than he intended, but the thought of being manipulated stirred a deep-rooted anger within him. Valerie smirked, unfazed. "Oh, Sterling, you must understand. This isn't just about you anymore. It's about legacy, and I hold the key to yours." She took a step forward, closing the distance between them. "You know as well as I do that family means everything in our world. You can either embrace this connection or risk losing it all." Sterling's heart raced. He had spent years building his empire, brick by brick, and now the idea of sharing it felt as foreign as the thought of relinquishing control. "What do you want from me?" he asked, his voice low, wary of the answer. "I want my fair share," Valerie replied, her eyes narrowing. "I know you've been considering the children at that orphanage as potential heirs. What if I told you I have a right to that fortune too? I could expose secrets about your family, things you'd rather keep buried." A chill ran down his spine. The thought of Valerie wielding information like a weapon was terrifying. He had spent years distancing himself from the toxic legacy of his past, and now it threatened to choke him. "You're bluffing. You wouldn't dare," he said, though his voice wavered slightly. Valerie chuckled, a sound devoid of warmth. "Try me. You see, Sterling, I know things about your father, the business dealings that went south, your brother's tragic accident. I could paint a very different picture of you if you don't comply." He felt cornered, the weight of her threats heavy on his shoulders. "You're playing a dangerous game, Valerie. You think I'll just roll over and give you what you want? I think you'll do whatever it takes to protect your precious image," she countered, leaning closer, her breath almost grazing his cheek. "You've built a life on the idea of being a Montgomery. Don't let that slip away because of a little family drama." Sterling took a step back, his mind racing. He couldn't let Valerie control him. He had worked too hard to reclaim his life, to forge a new path that was separate from the greed and manipulation of his past. But the threat of exposure loomed over him, dark and ominous. He needed to think, to strategize, but there was another part of him that felt drawn to the truth of his family's history, no matter how painful it might be. Just then, the door creaked open, and Mia stepped inside, her presence like a breath of fresh air amidst the stifling atmosphere. She paused, her eyes darting between Sterling and Valerie, sensing the tension immediately. "What's going on here?" she asked, her voice steady yet laced with concern. "Nothing you need to worry about, Mia," Sterling replied quickly, the instinct to protect her rising within him. But she wasn't easily deterred. Valerie took this opportunity to smirk, her posture relaxed as she faced Mia. "Oh, but I think she needs to know, don't you? After all, she's been so invested in your little project at the orphanage. Perhaps she should understand the stakes." Mia's brow furrowed, her analytical mind processing the situation in a heartbeat. "What do you mean?" she asked, crossing her arms defensively. "Sterling here is caught in a bit of a dilemma," Valerie began, her tone almost sing-song. "You see, he has a relative, me, who could potentially lay claim to his fortune. A fortune that he's been considering passing on to the children at that orphanage." Mia's gaze shifted to Sterling, searching for the truth in his eyes. "Is that true?" she asked, her voice softening as she reached out to him. "Valerie is trying to manipulate me," he confessed, the tension cracking as he let his guard down in front of her. "She claims to know things about my family that could ruin me if I don't play along." Mia's expression hardened, her protective instincts kicking in. "You can't let her intimidate you, Sterling. You have to stand your ground." Valerie laughed, a sharp, mocking sound that echoed in the room. "Oh, how sweet. The little social worker thinks she can save the day. But you're both missing the bigger picture. Sterling has a choice. Align with me and secure his legacy, or risk losing everything to the vultures waiting to pick his bones clean. You're the real vulture here, Valerie," Mia shot back, her eyes blazing with defiance. "You're using family ties as a weapon, and that's despicable." "I'm merely a realist," Valerie replied coolly, shrugging off Mia's accusation. "Family is everything in this world, and Sterling has to understand that." She turned to Sterling, her expression suddenly earnest. "But you have the power to shape your legacy however you see fit. All you need to do is choose wisely." The gravity of Valerie's words hung heavy in the air, and Sterling felt the weight of the world pressing down on him. He had thought his wealth could shield him from the complexities of family and loyalty, but now he saw how fragile that illusion truly was. His gaze flickered to Mia, who stood resolute beside him, her support a lifeline in the turbulent sea of his emotions. "You're right, Valerie," he said slowly, his voice steadying. "Family is important, but so is integrity. I won't let you manipulate me into doing your bidding." Valerie's expression darkened, her facade cracking as anger flared in her eyes. "You'll regret this, Sterling. I won't be silenced. You may think you can stand against me, but I hold the cards." Mia stepped forward, her voice unwavering. "You don't scare me, Valerie. We'll find a way to protect the orphanage and everyone in it, even if it means exposing your lies." Valerie's laughter filled the room again, but this time it felt brittle, almost desperate. "Good luck with that, dear. You might just just find that the truth can be more damaging than you think. With that, Valerie turned on her heel and strode out of the room, her heels clicking against the hardwood floor, leaving Sterling and Mia in a tense silence. The moment stretched between them, and Sterling felt the adrenaline coursing through his veins. He turned to Mia, searching her eyes for reassurance. "I'm sorry you had to see that," he said quietly. "I should have shielded you from it." "You don't need to apologize," Mia replied, her voice softening. "You're facing a difficult situation, and I admire you for standing your ground. But we need to figure out our next steps, together." He nodded, grateful for her unwavering support. "You're right. I can't let Valerie dictate my life. But I don't know how to confront the truths of my family's past without risking everything." Mia placed a hand on his arm, grounding him. "We'll figure it out. We'll expose her if we have to. The children at that orphanage deserve better than this." As she spoke, Sterling felt a flicker of hope igniting within him. Together, they would navigate this treacherous path, facing the shadows of the past and the threats of the present. For the first time, he truly understood the meaning of legacy, not just as a burden to bear but as a gift to be nurtured and protected. And with Mia by his side, he felt ready to fight for it. The sun had begun its descent, casting a warm golden hue over the orphanage's modest playground. Children's laughter echoed through the air, a sound that clashed with the weight of the decisions looming over Sterling Montgomery. He stood at the edge of the play area, his gaze fixed on the swings where a little girl giggled as she soared high, oblivious to the turmoil surrounding her. Sterling's heart felt heavy, a mix of resolve and trepidation swirling within him as he prepared for the confrontation with Valerie. "Mia," Sterling called out, his voice steady yet tinged with urgency as he spotted Mia across the yard, organizing a game of tag among the children. She turned, her brow furrowing slightly as she approached him, sensing the tension radiating from his frame. "What's wrong, Sterling?" she asked, her voice laced with concern. "You look like you've seen a ghost." "It's Valerie," he replied, running a hand through his hair, frustration evident in his posture. "She's not going to let this go. She's threatening to expose everything if I don't comply with her demands." Mia's expression hardened as she crossed her arms, her protective instincts flaring up. "What exactly is she threatening to expose? Your past? Your family's secrets?" "Everything," he admitted, his voice dropping to a whisper. "If I don't give her a portion of my fortune, she'll tell the world about my family's issues, my father's debts, the scandals. It could ruin me." "Sterling, you can't let her control you like this," Mia said, stepping closer, her eyes fierce and determined. "This orphanage means too much to you, to us. We can't let her win." "I know," he replied, his voice thick with emotion. "But what if she does expose everything? What if it destroys the orphanage, the children's lives? I can't let that happen." Mia's heart ached at the sight of the man standing before her, caught between his legacy and his desire to protect the innocent lives around them. "You have to make a choice, Sterling. You either stand up to her and fight for what's right, or you let her dictate your life and the lives of these children." He took a deep breath, weighing the options that hung before him like an impossible choice. "You're right," he said finally, a flicker of determination igniting in his eyes. "I won't let her destroy what we've built here. I'll confront her." Mia nodded, pride swelling in her chest. "I'll be right by your side." As they walked toward the entrance of the orphanage, the atmosphere shifted, charged with a sense of purpose. The laughter of the children faded into the background as Sterling prepared to face Valerie, and the stakes had never felt higher. Inside his office, surrounded by the children's drawings and vibrant artwork, Sterling faced Valerie. She lounged casually, a smirk on her face that set his teeth on edge. "Ah, Sterling, I was wondering when you'd grow a backbone," she said, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "Are you here to discuss my proposal?" He clenched his fists at his sides, taking a step forward. "I'm here to tell you that your threats won't work. I won't be blackmailed into giving you a single dime." Valerie's expression darkened, her eyes narrowing. "You think you can just dismiss me? You have no idea what I'm capable of. You've built a fragile empire, Sterling, and one word from me can bring it all crashing down." "I built this orphanage to give these children a chance," he replied, his voice steady and unwavering. "I won't let you take that away from them or from me. If you want to expose my family's history, go ahead. But I will fight you every step of the way." "Such noble intentions," she sneered, rising from her seat. "But remember, I know secrets you've buried deep. You think you're a hero, don't you? But your legacy is tainted, Sterling. It's only a matter of time before everyone sees it." "Maybe," he said, his voice dropping to a low rumble, "but I'd rather be a flawed man fighting for what's right than a coward hiding behind wealth and threats." Mia stood behind him, her presence a steady anchor. "You don't intimidate us, Valerie. We're not afraid of you." Valerie's eyes flicked to Mia, surprise written all over her face. "Ah, the little social worker. You think you can save the world with your idealism? You're both fools. This is business and I will win." "Not if I can help it," Sterling replied, stepping closer, his resolve hardening. "You'll regret this. I'm prepared to battle you in every way possible." Valerie's lips curled into a mock smile. "We'll see about that. I do love a good game." With that, she turned and left, the slamming door resonating in the stillness of the office. Sterling's heart raced, a mixture of adrenaline and fear coursing through him. He faced Mia, who looked up at him with admiration and concern. "You did well," she said, her voice soft yet powerful. But this isn't over. We need to prepare for whatever she's planning. I know, he replied, his voice thick with determination. But I'm not backing down. I refuse to let her destroy the orphanage. Mia stepped closer, her eyes searching his. And I'll stand with you. Together we can protect this place, these children. You don't have to do this alone. Sterling felt a warmth bloom in his chest at her words. Thank you, Mia. I don't know what I'd do without you. In that moment, the air around them shifted, the tension easing as they connected in a way that transcended their struggles. They moved closer, their foreheads resting against each other, breaths mingling in the space between. The world outside faded away, leaving only the two of them standing in the aftermath of the storm. With a sense of urgency, their lips met, a kiss that spoke of shared struggles and newfound hope. It was a kiss that ignited the flame of a bond forged in adversity, sealing their commitment to each other and the children they fought to protect. As they pulled away, Sterling felt a surge of clarity. We'll find a way to save this orphanage, Mia, no matter what it takes. Together, she affirmed, her gaze unwavering. But just as hope began to fill the air, a loud crash echoed from outside, followed by the panicked cries of children. Sterling's heart dropped as he and Mia rushed to the window, horror flooding his senses. Smoke billowed from the direction of the playground, chaos erupting as caregivers scrambled to gather the children. The world around them spun into a whirlwind of panic, and Sterling felt his chest tighten. What's happening? Mia shouted, her voice barely audible over the commotion. I don't know, Sterling replied, dread gripping him. We have to get outside. Without hesitation, they raced toward the door, adrenaline coursing through their veins. As they burst into the sunlight, the reality of the situation crashed over them like a tidal wave. Flames licked at the edges of the playground, children fleeing, their innocent laughter replaced by cries of fear. Call the fire department, Sterling yelled, his voice hoarse as he darted toward the nearest group of children, ushering them away from the danger. Mia followed closely, her heart pounding as she grabbed a few frightened children, reassuring them with calming words. Amidst the chaos, a sobering thought pierced through Sterling's mind. Everything they had fought for, everything they had built, was at risk of being reduced to ashes. The weight of the moment pressed down on him, and he felt the familiar pang of fear clawing at his heart. But as he looked into the eyes of the children, he knew that he couldn't waver. Not now. Not ever. The news of the orphanage's impending closure reverberated through the halls like a death knell. Children who once laughed and played now wandered with solemn faces, their dreams of a stable home suddenly snatched away. Mia Collins, the compassionate social worker who had dedicated her life to these children, sat in her small office, the weight of the world pressing against her chest. She could hear their hushed whispers, the uncertainty of their futures hanging in the air like a thick fog. Sterling Montgomery stood outside the orphanage, his heart heavy with regret. He had promised himself that he would make a difference, that he would save this place that had become a beacon of hope for so many. But as he faced the crumbling facade of the building, he felt the sharp sting of failure. He had been distracted by his own inner turmoil, too caught up in his feelings for Mia and the complications of his own legacy. He should have acted sooner, should have pushed harder for the funding that could have saved the orphanage. Mia, he called softly, stepping into her office, his voice barely above a whisper. She looked up, her eyes red-rimmed and weary. It pained him to see her like this, to witness the frustration and heartbreak etched across her face. Sterling, she replied, forcing a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. I didn't expect to see you here so soon. I heard about the closure, he said, stepping closer, his voice low and urgent. I'm so sorry. I should have done more. Mia shook her head, brushing a stray tear from her cheek. It's not just about you. We all had a part in this. I thought we could make it work, but the reality is that we're running out of time. Sterling clenched his fists, anger and desperation boiling within him. We can still save it. I'll make a large donation, enough to keep it afloat. I'll do whatever it takes. Mia's expression shifted, a mixture of hope and skepticism. It's not that simple, Sterling. Money isn't a cure-all. Even with your donation, there are systemic issues that we can't just throw money at. I've been thinking, I might need to leave the orphanage. The words hit him like a slap. Leave? Why would you do that? His voice cracked, disbelief evident in his tone. I need to pursue my own dreams, she replied, her voice steady despite the tremor of her hands. I can't keep pouring my heart into something that might not survive. It's too painful. Your dreams? Sterling echoed, frustration bubbling over. Mia, think about the kids. They need you here. And they need a stable future too, she countered, her gaze unwavering. If I stay, I'll be fighting against a system that's designed to fail. I can't be a part of that anymore. Please don't do this, he pleaded, desperation creeping into his voice. You're the heart of this place. Without you, they'll lose everything. Mia's expression softened, but her resolve remained firm. And if I stay, I might lose myself. I can't continue to fight a battle that feels unwinnable. Sterling felt the ground shift beneath him, the weight of the moment pressing heavily against his chest. He had come to realize that his feelings for Mia ran deeper than he had ever anticipated. She was not just a social worker. She was the embodiment of hope and resilience. The thought of losing her ignited fear within him like a raging wildfire. Mia, he started, but the words caught in his throat. Suddenly, the door swung open and Oliver, the young boy who had captured Sterling's heart, burst into the room. His bright eyes were filled with confusion and concern. Mia, why are you sad? Mia knelt down to Oliver's level, her voice gentle yet firm. Hey buddy, everything's going to be okay. We're just talking about some changes, that's all. Changes? He echoed, his brow furrowing. Like, are we going to get a new playground? Sterling knelt beside Mia, his heart aching at the innocence of the boy. Something like that, Oliver. But sometimes changes can be tough too. Why? Oliver asked, his voice small. Because sometimes, even when we want something really badly, it doesn't always happen the way we hope, Mia explained, her voice thick with emotion. But we have to try. Oliver insisted, his small fists clenched. Like when we play soccer. If we keep trying, we'll win. Sterling exchanged a glance with Mia, both of them struck by the boy's determination. You're right, Oliver, Sterling said, a spark of hope igniting within him. We have to keep trying. We can't give up on this place or on each other. After Oliver left, the silence hung heavy between them. Sterling knew he had to act quickly, but he felt a knot of uncertainty tightening in his stomach. What if I can secure the funding? What if I can save the orphanage before it's too late? Would you stay? Mia looked at him, her expression a mix of hope and fear. If you could do that, it would change everything. But Sterling, this isn't just about money. It's about the future of these kids. I understand, he said, determination flooding his veins. Let me show you that I'm serious about this. I'll make the calls, I'll reach out to my connections. Just, please don't leave yet. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm golden glow through the orphanage windows, Sterling felt a renewed sense of purpose. He would fight for Mia, for the orphanage, and for the children who depended on them. But as he reached for her hand, the door swung open once more, and in walked Valerie, her presence like a dark cloud. Fancy seeing you here, Sterling, she said, a sly smile creeping across her lips. I heard your little conversation. Planning on saving the orphanage? How noble of you. Mia's body tensed, her eyes narrowing. What do you want, Valerie? Just a little chat, Valerie replied, glancing between them with a mock interest. You see, I have some news that might interest you both. It seems our dear Oliver isn't just a sweet little boy living in an orphanage. He's actually my son. The world seemed to tilt on its axis as the words sunk in. Sterling felt as if he had been punched in the gut. What? He breathed, disbelief flooding his senses. Yes, my son, Valerie continued, the glee in her voice unmistakable. And just like that, your search for an heir takes on a whole new meaning, doesn't it? Mia's face paled, her eyes wide with shock. You're lying, she said, her voice trembling. Am I? Valerie smirked, her confidence radiating in the small room. I can prove it, but with your little financial woes, I think I might be able to help for a price, of course. Sterling's mind raced, his heart pounding in a frantic rhythm. The betrayal was a bitter pill to swallow. He had sought to create a legacy, but now it felt as if everything he had built was crashing down around him. Oliver, the boy who had inspired him, was caught in a web of lies and manipulation, and he had no idea. What do you want? Sterling asked, his voice low and strained. Let's just say I want a piece of the pie, Valerie said, crossing her arms. And if you want to keep Oliver out of my reach, I suggest you play nice. Mia stepped forward, her expression fierce. You won't get away with this, Valerie. We'll fight you. Valerie chuckled, the sound cold and devoid of warmth. Oh, sweet Mia, you have no idea what kind of game you're playing. I have the upper hand now, and you're both in deep trouble. As Valerie's words echoed in the room, Sterling felt his world unraveling. The weight of legacy, love, and betrayal pressed down on him, leaving him gasping for breath. In that moment, he realized that the quest for an heir had led him to a heartbreaking betrayal, leaving him and Mia with shattered dreams and unresolved feelings. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. They had to stand together or they could lose everything.